My F28 husband's M30 older brother, M35, confessed that he's in love with me. What the hell do I do? This happened last week. I am still shocked and have no idea what to do with this information. A little backstory: my husband and I have been friends since I was in middle school, so we've known each other, and each other's families, forever. We started dating after college and got married 2 years ago. Let's call my husband Greg and his older brother Michael. I've obviously known Michael just as long as I've known Greg, but in that vague, peripheral way you know a friend's older brother. He was already well into college by the time I met and started hanging out with Greg, so until we got married, I hadn't had a lot of contact with him except for holidays when everyone was home. Michael and his wife, let's call her Stephanie, have been separated for over a year and are in the process of getting divorced. He primarily cares for their 6-year-old son. Stephanie moved out of state. Michael is an ER physician and has been insanely busy since COVID started, especially since their son's daycare is still closed. Since I'm able to work remotely, I've stepped in to help out with babysitting. As a result, I've had more interaction with Michael, but still, it's not much. Just him getting home exhausted from work, saying thanks. Me saying some version of no worries, happy to spend time with my nephew. And then I leave. Nothing romantic, no ulterior motives, nothing weird. Then, last week, as I was gathering up my laptop and stuff getting ready to go home, Michael said, "Hey, I really need to talk to you about something that's been bugging me." I honestly thought it was going to be that I had done something wrong in caring for his son, letting him do/eat something he wasn't supposed to or something like that. But then, he essentially told me that he's been in love with me for years, and that his feelings toward me were a contributing factor in him leaving Stephanie, and seeing me with his son and coming home to me every night has been wonderful. He then said, "I understand you're with Greg, but I had to tell you how I feel." I sort of blacked out from shock, mumbled something about needing to get home, and left. I can't stress enough how little one-on-one contact Michael and I have had. Like, I don't think I've ever even hugged him. If you added up all the words we've ever spoken to each other, it might comprise a 30-minute conversation. He's almost like a father/teacher figure to me. I certainly don't feel the same way about him and am blown away that not only is he apparently in love with me, but I was a contributing factor in his divorce. Which means Stephanie knows how he feels. Because I know some problematic people will ask, no, I have never led him on, worn anything even remotely revealing in front of him, texted him about anything other than childcare logistics, or spent more than 10 minutes alone with him. I'm honestly more confused than anything because, from my perspective, he knows nothing about me, like we barely talk. How the hell can he think he's in love with me? I've avoided him entirely since it happened, saying I had a bunch of meetings and couldn't babysit last week, which I feel really guilty about because I love spending time with my nephew. I haven't told anyone else, especially my husband. Please help, this is so far above my pay grade, and probably above Reddit's as well, but have no idea what to do. I don't want to cause a weird rift between brothers, or not be able to see my nephew anymore. Any advice is welcome. Thanks. Too long didn't read. My husband's older brother confessed he's been in love with me for years and his feelings for me were the cause of his divorce. Please help. Maybe Michael isn't in love with you. I'm not saying you're not a catch, but maybe he's in love with the idea of you. Do you know why his marriage ended? But perhaps he saw you and Greg together and was thinking about how you don't fight or how you look happy together, etc., etc., and saw those things missing in his marriage. It could be just more of a crush than an actual "I've loved you since day one." But you need to tell your hubby ASAP. You don't want him to find out from your soon-to-be ex still calling him saying it's your wife's fault my marriage is over. Gotta tell your husband everything. Tell your husband what's going on and explain that's why you've been dodging his brother. Bill may think he's in love, but most likely is using what he thinks he knows about you as an ideal to hold up for his failed marriage. This, as you've pointed out, Bill barely knows you. He's created an idea of you in his mind and fallen in love with it. This sometimes happens when people are unhappy in their lives and close themselves off from being involved in the people around them. He was likely unhappy with his wife and during that time continued to imagine a life with you, building you up into someone you have never been. Be sure to mention this to your husband. I think that your bill needs clear boundaries, but not a kick in the teeth. He likely needs therapy. Tell your husband. The brother needs called out on his stupidity. Sounds like he's had a tough run, might got a bit too intense and found comfort in any female in close proximity. It happens. Step 1. Show husband this Reddit post. The information is going to cross husband's path eventually, and it's really important that you're the one to tell him. You don't want him finding out plus finding out plus you elected not to tell him. This insignificant thing about my boyfriend drives me crazy, and I don't know if it's a deal breaker. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years, we're both in our early 20s. I've noticed he never lets me have the better half of things, and it makes me feel like he doesn't really care about how I feel. Like, I always give him the bigger slice of pizza, the bigger cookie. Not just those, but if we make biscuits and only one isn't burnt, he'd take the only good one for himself. When I get a salad and ask if he wants to try it, he'll eat all the toppings off and leave me the lettuce. Just now I hadn't eaten all day and made 2 sweet potatoes, planned to save one for later, and he'd eaten loads already today. He asked if he could have one and grabbed the big one. One was tiny and one was much larger. It just irks me because it's such an insignificant thing, but it makes me so annoyed. I don't even know how I'd talk to him about it because I just feel like I'm starting a petty argument. How can I even approach the subject, or is it a deal breaker? I feel like I'm overreacting, but I don't really know. He's always been like this and everything else is great. It just makes me feel he's a bit selfish. I remember my co-worker telling me once about how she bought a 4-pack of steaks to cook for dinner. They were a family of 4, her husband, and their 2 teenagers. So 1 steak for everyone, right? Except her husband decided that he wanted more than 1 steak. So she ended up cutting her own steak in half so that he could have 1.5 steaks, and she just had half of one. Even knowing that he literally took food from his wife's plate, he just happily sat there and chowed down on his dinner, that she cooked, of course, and didn't have a care in the world. I was baffled at how nonchalantly she told the story, like it happened all the time, which, let's face it, probably did. I could never tolerate selfishness like that in a relationship. You need to talk to him about it. It's not insignificant, it's blatant selfishness, and it's a very ugly quality. I had an ex just like this, and at first I brushed it off thinking I was being overly sensitive, but later in the relationship, he would make me feel guilty and get annoyed if I ate something off his plate, ordered something more expensive, if I ate his snacks despite the fact that I was the one buying groceries, giving him half of my food, letting him eat all the takeout leftovers. Ultimately, this small thing was actually an indicator that he was extremely selfish and stingy. This might not be the case here, but probably best to have a discussion before it gets worse. He might just be oblivious too. He's being inconsiderate and selfish. It's not a deal breaker as long as you address it and he corrects this behavior. If he doesn't know about it being an issue for you, then he can't possibly change anything, can he? Have a conversation, not an argument. You could also change your behavior. Stop giving him the good one. Say no if he wants to try some, and explain that you're saving it for later, as in the sweet potato example you gave. Look after yourself and keep your expectations of him realistic. Good luck. Yes, just take the larger/unburned piece. Don't offer to share anymore. You've let him roll over you too much. If he has a problem with it, he'll bring it up. I'll bet he'll say you're becoming selfish all of a sudden. Whatever the case, it'll be good for you too. It seems like this might leak into other areas of your relationship with him. I mean, does he always put himself first in other ways? Is he a generous lover? Are gifts reciprocal? I will say that would annoy me as well, especially the sweet potato thing, because I'd be downright hangry at that point. But if it's just smaller things like your examples and not other things as well, I don't know if it would be a deal breaker. I'd definitely mention it because I can't keep my ever-loving mouth shut about that kind of stuff. Greedy boy. I mean zoom out. Does he tend towards selfishness in other areas of his life or your relationship? For X, when you're choosing a restaurant or movie, during intimacy etc. Does he treat his friends the same way? His family? In one of my relationships, I first noticed he never asked me to pick movies or TV shows. Felt Betty bringing it up. Then I zoomed out and realized our relationship was actually really lopsided when I really thought about it. Take some time to reflect. I just realized how spot on you are. It's not just about the food. He's selfish all around. He picks the restaurant/movie/ etc. and doesn't even ask me unless he doesn't know what he wants. He never reciprocates gifts and is incredibly stingy. All the food he takes, I pay for, and he never shares his. He never goes down on me but expects that from me. I guess all these things are correlated and I never realized it. I can't even remember the last time he paid for us when we went out, or offered me the better side of anything. I, 23F, think my boyfriend, 24M, of 3 years let my dog escape 5 months ago and wasn't hoping he'd be found. I apologize for the huge wall of text, but I'm very angry and upset right now and I don't know who to ask about this because it's 3 in the morning. TL, doctor at the bottom. 5 months ago, I was out shopping for groceries when I got a text from my boyfriend asking if I let my dog out before I left. I told him I didn't and that he was asleep on the couch when I left and I'd appreciate if he let him out while he was over. He said of course and that was the end of the conversation until I got home. My apartment has a slider that leads out onto a small yard where my dog does his business. There's one gate fence that leads out into the parking lot that has to be unlocked from the inside. When I came home, my boyfriend was in the kitchen waiting for me and said that my dog accidentally got out. He was very apologetic and said he opened the slider to let him out and somehow the gate was open and my dog ran out and he couldn't catch him. I spent 2 months calling around to shelters, humane societies, rescues, animal control, putting up flyers, going to these places to look, asked my neighbors. I looked everywhere for him. I was heartbroken and I basically haven't stopped crying. My dog has never been one to run even if the gate was open. He loves to be around people and if his people are around, he stays put. I adopted him when he was 3 years old when I got an apartment and he's my first dog I'm responsible for on my own, not a family dog. He's now an older guy, going on 7, he doesn't have it in him to run away. He knows he has it good and sees running away wouldn't have any benefits. And beyond that, when I rescued him, he went through training and has very good recall. Not perfect, but he comes 8/10 when he's called. And then 2 days ago I get a call from a vet hospital 2 hours away saying that they scanned a stray dog and found his microchip matched my information. I may have broken a few speed limits getting to him but he was there. My little man was at the freaking vet hospital. I cried and asked 1,000 questions. He was found in that town wandering the day prior by an amazing woman who brought him to the vet. They said when he was dropped off, he didn't have a collar on and they asked the woman and she said he was found as is. But he was a little malnourished and dehydrated so the vet put him on a drip and got some food into him and scanned him today when they opened. And then they found me. I was so overwhelmed and happy and couldn't even start my car once I got in with him because I couldn't stop crying for a good 10 minutes. I drove him home, gave him a bath, and called/texted everyone he was home safe. My boyfriend's response was really cool, thumbs up. Then he came over yesterday and obviously all I wanted to do was tell him what happened, but he didn't even seem like he cared. He just nodded along as I talked. Asked him if something was wrong, but he said he was fine. My dog wouldn't go near him, which was weird considering my dog loved him before. I just figured he was scared to be home with other people at the moment and needed time to adjust. After my boyfriend left, I couldn't help but start maybe overthinking, which has led to this post. First, my dog wore a martingale collar with his tags on it and the collar had my information stitched into it. And he had his rabies tag, dog license, and an ID tag with his name, address, phone number, and said I am microchipped. For those that don't know, martingale collars, the one I had on him, are not buckle or breakaway collars. They have to be physically tightened or loosened to be taken off. Not something my dog could have just slipped when he ran off. At least, not easily. Don't come for me for having this collar on him. I now know the risks but I didn't at the time. He's now wearing a breakaway collar. Second, He won't go near my boyfriend. My boyfriend did try to lean down and pet him when he came over yesterday, and as soon as my dog noticed, he ran into my bedroom and didn't leave until my boyfriend left. Yet, he's said a very excitable hi to a few of his favorite neighbors, both male and female, young and older. Usually my dog would be walking over to my boyfriend and sitting by him until he acknowledges him with a few pecks or a treat. Third, the gate. It's a very rare occasion I use that gate. Usually I use my front door, walk down the hallway, and get the mail or leave my apartment that way through the lobby. I almost never go around the building because that means I have to open the door with my keys and it's a longer route. I don't remember even using it the week my dog went missing. It only opens from the inside, and I've never once before had an issue with it opening on its own. There's no damage to it, and you can bet I fiddled with it when he first went missing to see if it was broken or there was something wrong with it. Nothing was. It latched fine and closed fine. Fourth, when my dog went missing, my boyfriend, now that I look back on it, wasn't invested. When I made the first round of flyers to put up, he actually asked, "Do you really think these will help?" Looking back, I don't think he cared one way or another if my dog was found. Never once before did my boyfriend say anything negative about my dog. He was never overly affectionate or excited that I had a dog, but he would throw the ball and pet him when he came over. They were never best friends cuddling up on the couch, but my dog did see him as someone to play with and hang out with. Now I feel like I'm going crazy. Think I might be overthinking this. Maybe it was a freak accident and he just ran out the yard because it was open for some reason. Or the alternative is my boyfriend willingly let my dog leave the yard and somehow got him to go away. Because I know my dog and he would never just run unless he thought it was a game or something. Is this something I ask him about? How do I even bring this up? Hey, did you make my dog run away? Or is this just something I'm just over-exaggerating in my head because I'm happy my dog's home but I'm looking for answers? Too long didn't read. My dog went missing 5 months ago from my yard when my boyfriend let him out, and I found him 2 days ago. Now I think I might be overthinking that my boyfriend is the reason my dog ran away because the collar he was wearing isn't one that a dog could easily get off but wasn't found wearing it. My boyfriend was never very affectionate with my dog to begin with. The gate he apparently ran out of wasn't even opened the week he went missing, and now that I look back on it, my boyfriend seemed like he didn't care one way or another if my dog was found. Update: first off, thank you all for the support. I can't express how much I appreciate it. I'm so freaking happy he's home safe. I have not spoken to my boyfriend yet today about this, other than to ask if he was free tonight to talk. He is, so I'm going to talk to him tonight. I apologize for not replying to people. I've had a very busy morning. I'll try to answer people as I go. I brought him to his usual vet to get checked out this morning. He's still a little dehydrated and he needs to eat more food, but spread throughout the day. He's lost weight and needs to get it back on. He's also exhausted. Otherwise, except for a few scrapes and spots, he's doing really good. To put into perspective how far away from home he was, I googled how far my apartment is from the vet office he was found, set it to a walking human speed, and it's 34 hours away and 99.2 miles away. It may not seem far because of a car or any form of transportation, but for a dog, that's a long ways to go. As for motives as to why he would do it, I don't know. I really don't. I got my dog 2 months after I started dating my boyfriend, but we had been friends for a few months before and he knew I really wanted a dog. When I finally did get my dog, he wasn't exactly happy about it. He was asking questions like, can you actually afford a dog and an apartment? What about when you go to class and work? He tried to convince me not to adopt him, but I was dead set on it. That said, he wasn't the only one who was saying these things. My dad was very upset with me for getting a dog until I showed him my entire plan and expenses of it. And then he was fine with it. However, even though I said I was getting a dog and there were no issues about it, my boyfriend was still saying I was making a mistake. It took him a few weeks to finally get around to even play with him. Did speak to my landlord about any cameras in the area and he said that he would take a look. but he wasn't sure if there was one facing near the yard to see if the gate really was open and my dog ran through. That being said, I've never had an issue with that gate for as long as I've lived here and no one ever uses it. If maintenance needs to come in, they go in through the front door. And if they needed to be in the yard, they would alert me to let me know they needed, again, to go through my apartment to get there. They don't use the gates to any of the first floor apartments. I will update when I have more information, but this is all I have right now. I'm sorry it's not exactly exciting. And just a reminder, please microchip your animals if you can, and give them some love. I made a new post with an update. I apologize for not adding it here. This was getting long and I thought it would be easier for people.